Good evening, Misfits. Age group online qualifier unofficial day 1 is well underway. Drew, you know me, see me and all the stuff. Sherb,
Oi.
You know Sherb, you see him and all the stuff. He is also your teens coach. If you follow the teens programming, this is your guy. This is the guy writing the programming and communicating with you guys on social media. And last but not least, the Misfit OG has returned. Gabe Garcia, your master's coach, is in the house to help us break down these workouts. I'm thinking we quickly talk about what order we think the athletes should go in, because a lot of them are going to want that information quick, especially if they got a little bit more time this evening, on the West Coast. And then we will go event by event, quickly break them down, talk about points of performance, all that good stuff. I will say that it's event 4 first, is what we're saying for basically every athlete. There's a caveat to that. Kenzie Riley was one of my only athlete in the quarterfinals that wanted to work out first and then lift. Gabe, you switched a couple of your athletes to that schedule, but it's a 4 then 2 or a 2 then 4. Yep. We know that. The thing that I want you guys to suss out is this event 2 versus event 3
event
situation.
1 and event 4, correct? Because event 2 is a GHD setup. Workout.
Yes, event 4 and event 1.
Yes, sorry. Clarify.
The thing that matters, I think really the only question that's been brought up is event 2 versus event 3. What goes down? Gabe and I were talking about having people get event 2 done tomorrow and potentially be done with it, especially if you're a master's athlete, because then you got Saturday to do event 4 and you've got Sunday to do event 5. You have some concerns with the double under workout. Let's say event 2 is wheelhouse and event 3 is a real issue. Do you want an athlete to do event 3 on Friday and potentially also be able to go Saturday?
Yeah, my one concern, with those athletes that are, maybe the GHD setup, rope climb, pistols, wheelhouse, and they're a little bit concerned about how they're going to do in double unders or, back blowing up doing 75 power cleans at that weight, because it's not super heavy, but it's an intense amount of volume. So my concern was, if an athlete does the GHD workout first, do they then fry their midline and their quads from all the pistols and sit-ups? Are they able to bend over and grab that bar over and over again? So to me, I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong answer. It's asking yourself, which workout are you more concerned about, potentially being the worst of the two, and prioritizing that one first. And then if you're in the 14 or 15 age group, you're not as concerned, because you have the ab mat setup as opposed to the GHD, which is a little bit less on the quads. Even though your feet are anchored, it's not going to give you that same stimulus. That range of motion is less. So, my personal opinion is, if you are someone who is not great with double unders, or you don't really like high rep barbell stuff, knock that one out first and do the GHD one second. Conversely, if you are nervous about pistols or GHDs, potentially put that one first just while you're fresh, so you're not getting stuck in the GHD, because we saw so many athletes in the quarterfinals, both Indian team, really struggle to stay moving on that workout. That's the name of the game, and that people who stay consistent the entire time are the ones that finished it, and the ones that paused a lot were the ones that got stuck.
Yeah, I just feel, at least from a master standpoint, there's going to be so much variation in that GHD workout, and I think you need to maximize your score on that one. I think
you can slide up the leaderboard with that bad boy.
Absolutely. And I think that if you knock out the front squat and event 1 on the first day, you give yourself a little bit of extra time between that GHD. If you do that next, and then the power clean workout, you can really put that in one day by itself.
Yep.
Right. So I would prefer to do that as a master's athlete, and honestly, that's going to be one that involves the most skill, and that's going to be the separator from the master's athlete standpoint. Because obviously it's volume, but it's that skill. It's the variability in skill. If you can go, do well on your pistols, if you can climb a rope, you just got to grind through the GHDs, and you're going to be better off prioritizing that.
I would definitely agree with you in that regard. It's not, 5-10 years ago when we'd be like, all right, 300 double unders, how much time are we talking? People are going to struggle with that. Basically, everyone at that level has pretty good or very good double unders. So there isn't a lot of separation there. Potentially, if you decide to go touch and go or singles on the power cleans, you might buy yourself a little bit of time, but then you give that time away if you're not great with the jump rope. So I do think those scores will probably be a little bit tighter on event 3 than they will be on event 2.
The only other thing I will say to consider is, if you did push back the GHD workout and did that after, do you think, you just did the overhead squat and burpee box jump over, do you think that would have it, do you want to put more time in between those two workouts, being the major squatting workouts of the event.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about attacking event 5 is putting it your first run on Saturday, giving yourself the day it's effectively the next day would be due, get that one under your belt, and then ask yourself, like, what about my strategy could have gone better? Because I said to Drew, as soon as I got done that workout, like, I should have pushed that middle set of burpee box jump overs the same way I pushed my last 6, because I was waiting for it to get worse and worse, because I remembered the power snatch variant of the individuals, like, that got really gross. My heart rate went through went through the roof. Heart was in my throat, and I couldn't stay moving on that one the way I could on the overhead squat one. So if at all possible, I think it is a good idea to try to separate, even though it's not high volume squats, it's just squats and squats. So it's a tough back to back.
So to clarify, we're saying events 4 and 1 today.
Correct.
We are saying, especially for the Masters athletes, you are prioritizing event 2 tomorrow.
Yep.
If you're a teen athlete, depending on how you feel about volume, this is going to be very personalized. Talk to your parents, talk to your coach, all that good stuff. But the idea of trying event 3, I'll get there.
Yep.
Trying event 3 on Friday, even afterwards, because the time constraint's not really a thing. You're not worried about noon Pacific, 3 p.m. East Coast, and all the other times that are there. I don't think there's anything wrong with that if you're worried about tripping up on your double unders, if you're worried about whether you're going to go touch and go or singles, because then you can try that again on Saturday. But I just love the idea of 4 and 1, 2, 3, 5, all on 2, 3, and 5, all on separate days for Masters athletes. I really like that. Give yourself some space and really get into it.
Yeah, and I think, if you're following along closely, you'll notice on each one of those days, at the end of your training session, there is a built-in period where it says flush. That is so important, especially for those Masters athletes that, don't have all those hormones pumping through their veins like they used to make sure that squatting volume gets flushed out of those
You're talking
legs.
to 2 Masters athletes here. Take it easy.
I mean, I'm going to be with you guys in like 18 months, so I'm not that far behind. But I do think it is a smart call to spread out the squatting across the days instead of trying to jam it all into one and then praying that somehow you can get through the box jump overs on day 5.
If you go back and look at the last few weeks of the Masters programming as well, so I haven't looked as closely as at yours, but for the Masters programming, it has specifically been designed for that. So the last days of the week has been designed for you to really push on one piece, and that's essentially the setup that we got here.
Right.
So if you can do that, you'll have plenty of time to recover. You've done more than enough volume. I think you're going to be fine there. It's just finding the way to maximize
one conditioning piece a day for
absolutely.
4 days. That's a dream.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you do this in the Masters, I do it in the teens. There's that weekly work in there. We have that fasted cardio. We have that flow work. The idea behind those pieces are on the days that you're maybe not training at 100%, you go in, you move around, you encourage some aerobic adaptations, which is going to aid in your recovery so that when you go back to Monday in the following week and you're ready to hit it hard, your body's ready for that again. So the patterns of the programming look the same. What's up, Ted?
We're just going to take a quick break. We will be right back. And we're live. We're back. We're here. Sure, you were saying?
So I left off with a second ago. If you are, pay attention to the normal weekly schedule, you'll see that weekly work is built in there, and that is in there for your active recovery and or, lower intensity rest day type of stuff where, most of our athletes that follow along like to move around 7 days a week. So, one day is your flush or your flow, and one day is your fasted cardio. And the idea here is we're trying to supercharge that aerobic system so it aids in your recovery so that you're able to get through essentially what we've talked about before is the CrossFit Games being like a 4-day long aerobic event. The qualifiers are very similar. Yes, you're not in person in Madison, but they're pretty close in comparison when it comes to can you recover between events so you can maximize your potential across the entire weekend.
Right. Okay, so event by event.
Yep.
Let's go through it. So event 1, we got 5 rounds per time, 15 handstand push-ups, 15 dumbbell shoulder overhead, 15 calorie row. What I see immediately is 150 pressing reps. You're talking about 15 pressing reps a minute or faster.
Mm-hmm. It's a trap.
Yeah,
to me, I just have one of my remote athletes just compete in the event in the Masters 35 to 39, and he has great upper body endurance. But even with someone who has phenomenal upper body endurance, by the third set he was standing around breaking things up, and it wasn't planned breaks; it was forced breaks. So I just talked to him afterwards. I said, hey, if you're feeling good enough, come to do this again, to maybe tomorrow, if you are up for it, again, depending on your schedule, this is one of those workouts where you need to think about rep speed and not about how many reps there are in an individual set. So when you attack the workout, it's fine to go 6-5-4 on the handstand pushups and the dumbbell shoulder overhead, as long as it's like a shimmy, shake, and pick right back up. What you cannot do is do 15 reps, stand around, 15 reps, stand around, or 10 and 5, but have giant breaks in between. So this is one of those ones where we talk about upper body having a lot of fast twitch muscle fiber. It doesn't make sense to fight through slow reps. And if you do early, just realize, like you said a second ago, it's 150 reps. It's not going to pay off in the long run.
The biggest question I have for I think it's for each individual to ask for themselves is in relation to the dumbbells. And the way I see it, I think, what's the cost of breaking up handstand push-ups coming down from the wall? You can do it in 2 to 3 seconds, right? Take a breath, kick right back up. I think the cost of putting the dumbbells down is a minimum somewhere between 7 to 10 seconds or so.
Yeah, 15 maybe.
15, yeah. So I think that's where you got to really be careful. I think what you're saying, depending on your shoulder endurance, you may be forced to do that. But if you can try to plan to take more breaks on the wall and less breaks on the dumbbells, I think that's going to pay off. Just a suggestion if you can.
And one of the things I thought about too, I agree with the pressing reps. I do think this is one of those workouts where you might think you're rowing either too fast or too slow. To me, this is a scenario similar to the 120 calories that we saw with the individuals, where you need to row at an uncomfortable but sustainable pace. So like the conversation I had with my athlete beforehand is that, he went into it going, 11, 1200. And I said, this is one of those workouts where you can lose the workout on the rower by going too hard and blowing yourself up, but you can also lose the workout by going too slow.
Yes, I think more people will lose by going too slow.
I agree. And that's the conversation I had, because he came into it and said, hey, what do you think about like 11, 1200? And I said, I think you're capable of 13 to 1400. And he did a good job executing on that. But it's one of those things, just the one time you get to pull with your arms instead of press. So, and again, it's the follow through on your stroke. So don't fall in the trap of making it a little bit too easy on yourself. Because I do think there'd be a bunch of athletes who kick themselves at the end thinking that it was the handstand pushups and dumbbell to shoulder overhead that maybe they could have bought more time with, but they were, really diligent in their sets, but they didn't push the rowing portion of the workout hard enough, because it is a third of the workout.
Yeah, the shoulder to overhead, the handstand pushups, it's too many reps for more than a handful of people in each division to crush. Mm-hmm. It's just way too many. And while the handstand push-ups are a quick cycle rate and you can kick down, kick back up, are also much shorter range of motion. Mm-hmm. Your hand's where your head is. We don't have that extra portion, and we get to create a closed system by having the ground to be against. You are independent over here with these dumbbells. They're floating all around. We've all been there. Sherb's always there if he has dumbbells. Sometimes we get him to get it up on his shoulder before he does a rep.
For like a lunge.
But the point I'm trying to make is, not only is it costly to do 3 or 4 sets on those, it's also very costly to move the way that we see most people moving. Your knee extension, your glute extension, you using your lower half to jump that weight up, especially when your shoulders go, it's got to happen. And we see too many people that would rather try to have that sort of snappy rep where they barely flash their elbow through and maybe their range of motion isn't excellent, or the dumbbell's out in front a little bit. Keep your hands near your ears. Keep your hands nice and close. Try to go straight up with those dumbbells and use your lower half. And the main reason I know this, the amount of running and push press workouts that I did during COVID with a very similar weight, you get to a point where arms don't work anymore, you can continue to jump that weight up. But that is a skill. That is something people need to learn and something people need to actually use. So basically, the gist of this workout is we have 150 reps to go overhead with, and you can figure out what that means for you personally, because this is a very personal workout, or your 4th and 5th round can be a big pile of crap. You have to figure that out. If you're going to rest in the open, in quarterfinals, in age group online qualifier, it needs to be on purpose or you're going to lose.
I say for perspective, again, going back to the athlete I just worked with, I know fresh he can hit somewhere between 30 and 40 strict handstand pushups in a row, in one set. And he was going down to 2s and 3s in the dumbbell at the end of the workout. So just using that as like the lens to look through, realizing there's absolutely nothing wrong with breaking it up. There is a 100% something wrong if you get to round 3 and you go, I can only do 2 or 3s at a time. That is overextension. That is putting you past. That's good training. That is bad testing.
Fast Twitch fam, just so you know, round 1, you want to let her rip. I don't think there's really much wrong with that. You know, your fresh round, but again, that's going to feel right. And then it's going to feel wrong if you do it for round 2. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. There are athletes out there that need to start fast and end fast. And if you're one of those athletes, but only give yourself that single round to do that.
Yep, I completely agree.
All right, event 2, 60, 50, 40 GHD sit-up pistol with obviously the rope climbs are 654. I feel like I've seen this before somewhere. All right, so we have, I mean, you know, this is Denny Green. They are who they thought they were. Like, we know exactly what this workout is. Most people have practiced some sort of variation of this workout. The nuance now is that you have to push in your 40s instead of your 30s. Mm-hmm. It's going to hurt a little bit more.
It's going to hurt a little bit more, and I think hopefully you've gathered a little bit of data. You got a chance to watch some of your athletes, or maybe you just kind of jumped on YouTube and you watched some of the high-level competitors kind of work through this workout. You know, unless you have a very well-rounded like midline and you've done a lot of GHD sit-ups, I still think for a lot of athletes, the idea of getting through, you know, 15s or, you know, fast sets of 10 is still the best strategy in the GHDs, but you have your coach or you have that clock directly in front of you where you give yourself 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you start again. Rope climbs, because the pistols are going to fry your midline, are going to make it hard on your, you know, bringing your knees up in there. So we've said on previous podcasts for both the teams and individuals, probably a smart idea to do an extra third pull on the rope climb just to try to save your midline from bringing those knees up. And then once you get to those pistols, like, make sure you're not working against yourself. Get yourself warm. If you feel better in your set of 50 or 40, you didn't do what you needed to do to get ready for the set of 60. And I fall in that camp of someone who's really bad at pistols, but typically find that by the end of the workout, these are good. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you, moron? Do the right thing every single time, and you won't have to go through that experience. So to me, this is still going to be a challenging workout to finish in under, I think 20 minutes is the time cap for this. But just know that if you don't take the extra time to make sure you're nice and warm for the pistols, and you don't have a good cohesive plan for the entire GHD, you know, portion of the workout, you're going to be in trouble again. And hopefully you've done, you know, watched ahead, got that experience, and you know what you're getting into when you go into this workout.
I think it's important before we talk about the masters to clarify that when you are shorter and you weigh less, which most teens are than masters, the GHD sit-ups potentially aren't going to have the same sort of impact just based on physics and based on super healthy tissues versus, you know, a whole lifetime of using your muscles. And obviously these are athletes. So I think that part is important. There are a lot of teen athletes that are going to be able to do all 60 continuously in the 16 to 17 specifically. And well, obviously in the 14 to 15, they're doing ab mat sit-ups. So that's really kind of a speed race. But with the masters, breaking them up, quote unquote, breaking them up just to make sure that the 50 and 40 go well, like sort of feeling out the 60, I think is important.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at this, it's a classic grinder from CrossFit and then sprinkling the skill level, you know, just ramping it up to a higher level. So I think what Master is going to be faced with is you get all this, every rep is an opportunity to break. Like you said, like this is getting kind of hard. I could really take 10 seconds right now. You're going to face that with every rep after you get, you know, even potentially 30 GHD sit-ups into this. The key is to have that discipline and to know your strengths. Drew and I talked about it. And if you're okay at GHD sit-ups and you're really good at pistols and you are decent at rope climbs, you'll be fine. If you struggle with GHD and you struggle with pistols, you've got to find a way to get through one of those movements a little bit quicker.
Rise to the occasion.
Yeah. So in that sense, I think masters, you talked about, you know, steady sets of 10, 15. I think the approach of, you know, before it gets really out of hand on GHD sit-ups, you need to stop, you need to take a breath. And mentally, you need to start thinking about, okay, my next set doesn't need to be 10 or 15 because that's going to force you to take a longer rest. I think you need to take, you know, say, okay, can I hit 5? And then cut that time under tension, because I think that's where you'll see a lot of separation is the, you know, the pistol obviously has a metabolic effect, but it has a lot of, just mobility and the skill to it. So I think that's where you're going to see a lot of variation. People either going to hammer the GHDs and struggle on the pistols. I mean, I think the rope climbs are, I wouldn't call them a non-factor, but I think they're something that you just have to kind of get through and not make mistakes on.
What was really interesting about, because there are a lot of relatively good athletes out there that aren't that good at rope climbs, but the level of competition has risen so high that the athletes that we coach on a regular basis, every single one of them crushed the rope climbs. Mm-hmm. There was not a single person who thought that it was okay to slow down there. So when we say you get one gimme, you get one thing that you can be a little slow and steady on, that includes the rope climbs. And I think with mobility issues potentially on the master side and inexperience on the teen side, I think the rope climbs could potentially be more of an issue there. And you need to, what's really great about competition is you can bring something out of yourself that you normally wouldn't go there in training. And pistols and GHDs are both fairly gritty movements if you're used to them. So you need to know, if you're going into this and you're like, there are two weaknesses here, you got to make up your mind on one of them and shut that off completely.
Yep.
Turn that off altogether, because unfortunately there's not enough time in this workout. It's not enough time for you to lose by 5, 6, 7 minutes, which is going to be possible in something like this. Now that the round of 30 is not on there, you can't go there. So pick the one that you're going to be smart about. Austin crushed this workout and he really struggled with the GHDs, but he just blasted through his pistols. Yeah. So it's important to note that you only get one real spaghetti. And obviously if you're good, yeah, exactly. If you're good at all three, part of it is actually being steady through 60, 50 and pushing on the 40, but
yeah, I mean, I didn't have anything to add. My one thing was going to be what you just said at the end there. Make sure that you don't pick two things to be bad or to go easy on, as you pick, maybe the weaker one. And then you got event 3.
Event 3, we aren't sure if we like it because it's good or if we like it because it's finally different, but we have 4 times 75 cleans, 300 double unders. We just watched it. It was kind of funny. I had an interaction with one of our athletes at the whiteboard before who said, if you do touch and go at all, you're an idiot. I didn't agree with him there, but I wanted to see it in action. And then we watched Brady average about 15. He started with 20 in a minute, and then he fell off. But he was going too hard. Touch and go or not, he was just going a little bit too hard for the beginning of a 10-minute workout. And then did 5 touch and go at the end, and you sort of see what happens when someone stops dropping the bar. And I mean, he stayed on his bar. His body language changed a few times, like screw this, but he never really left the bar. He did a very good job. But I do think that, he sort of made up his time a bit more in the double under. 75 in 5 minutes is, I think pushing the far end.
That's a good clip. That's a good pace.
A little bit. So we talked about this. Can you do well in this workout with 75 singles? Yes. But the idea of, there are workouts that have massive chunks in them, that the games, at regionals, and we go talk to athletes and we say, hey, you do a set until you don't want to anymore, not until you're going to grind. So, who knows? Is it 12, 13 power cleans? Not that hard. If you, have a sound mind and body kind of a situation, you're really breathing through it. And then you do 8. And then you do 7. And when you start to get to the point where you don't really want to do touch and go anymore, you transition to singles. We just really believe that you are not going to feel that much worse, and you're going to be at 40 power cleans like that.
Yep.
And it's not going to be 3 minutes in.
So one thing actually Kate said to me, the female we had on our video, is that she did singles basically the entire workout. I don't think she did any touch and go at all. And she said, I wish I had done touch and go to somewhere in the mid 30s to 40 range, because my heart rate started to spike in the first 10, and then it just stayed the same and started actually slow back down as she worked towards her double.
You have to rush down to the floor to pick up the bar. It's not a great position to breathe from, you're kind of closing your body down. So while the idea of you don't get any points for the negative makes sense later on in that set, I really don't think that it makes sense early on.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be some singles in this, because those are double unders afterwards. It's jumping and grip.
That's exactly what she said. She goes, you have to know how many reps you need to bring your heart rate back down to a reasonable zone if you're not great with double unders. So if you're like pretty good at double unders, maybe you can hang on to touch and go through like 50 reps, and then you go to the singles. And
you mean in multiple sets?
Not 50 straight, correct. Not
Gabe
50
said
straight.
he would have done 40 in a row. I believed him too.
I would have gone max unbroken.
He would have
back in the day.
And then he was still looking 300 unbroken.
Then he would have done the other 35.
But you have to know yourself and figure out like how long will I need to get my heart rate in a reasonable zone so I can do the double unders. Because like we said with Brady, very consistent. And then I think for funsies, he probably saw you guys smiling and laughing at him like, hey, go Brady. And he was like, hell yeah, I'll go for 5 touch and go to end this thing. And then I thought he was going to try to disintegrate the rope in his hands because he was so frustrated. He was tripping early on just because he was in that like spastic mode and his heart rate was through the roof. So, basically the inverse of Brady's strategy there. You start with touch and go, you go singles so that when you get to your rope, you're not completely blown up, because both him and Kate said right around the 50 double under mark is where they kind of settled into like their forever pace and were kind of able to stay a little bit more consistent with their jump rope.
I mean, I think if you front load the first half of this, I mean, you're going to be forced, whether you're doing singles the whole way or if you do touch and go at the beginning, to taper off a little bit at the end, because you're thinking about, okay, I got to pick up this rope. So I just, you're going to do yourself a disservice if you're not pushing the front end.
The reps are just too much faster.
Yeah, it's 75 reps too. I mean, you're going to be forced, whether you're doing singles or any touch and go, you're going to be forced to level off. So
I have a theory. The days of 60 double unders, then 50, then 40, then 30, the old break these up, I think they're gone. I think they're over. I think you get your 300 double unders and you do 300 double unders. If we're talking about someone trying to qualify.
I need to pour out a little liquor.
My homies. The three of us have been doing this for so long. There were days when you saw something like this and it was really smart to say, all right, we're going to knock out 75 and, then we're going to switch to sets of 50, whatever it is. I think for most athletes, those days do not exist anymore. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, unfortunately. For my own fitness sake, I agree.
For the people who do need to break them up, I mean, same kind of concept. The only issue with that same concept is they're going to feel bad, then good, then bad again.
Yeah, I think that the trick in that scenario is that you have to realize, and this is something that every athlete typically goes through at some point in their CrossFit career, is that like you get to a certain level of suck with the jump rope, and then it doesn't really get that much worse. But you have to tell your brain, like, you're going to be okay. Keep focusing on your breathing and just keep jumping and flicking your wrist. Jumping and flicking your wrist. When I was doing the team version of that, and you came over to me and said, like, it's not going to get any worse, you were 100% right. I was very uncomfortable, but it did not get any worse. It was the psychological factor of, like, me feeling sorry for myself, not the actual physical failure that was occurring because of the exercise intensity.
I don't experience that at all in double unders, so I can't add anything to it. But I think
I could give you a dissertation on what that feels like, ladies and gentlemen. All right,
I agree.
Event 4,
squat.
Again, someone's been copying someone's homework here. We got a 4-rep max front squat. These poor athletes that did all 3 versions. I'm so sorry that you are
dialed in by now
in a single month doing 3, 4. I mean, maybe 4 or 5 4-rep maxes.
It's like regionals training all over again.
Yeah, it is. Jeez. Event 5 has a little twist on it that we have an opinion on that has morphed, I think, since you tested this. This is 12.96 overhead squat, burpee box jump over. The women's box height is the same as the men's box height. So that's I think one of the things that changes this workout. But we sort of had this conversation afterwards of you would prefer your legs to burn a little bit over your heart, being like in your mouth, basically. And that's the difference of the 963 versus this one.
Yeah, for me, I thought that the power snatch version was going to be the better of the 2 workouts for me, thinking about like the stability of the overhead squat, what that's going to do to your upper body as you go to pressing it over the burpees, and then your legs just being cooked, thinking about how I moved through it last time with the 963 version, thinking, my legs felt like lead and I wasn't feeling great, but because my heart was in my throat, I couldn't stay moving. I was a lot of popping straight up, stepping to the box and going, whereas today, heart rate stayed a little bit lower. Yes, my legs were tired, but you just pick your knees up a little bit higher, you clear that box. I think I was able to stay moving better in the burpee box jump overs.
So many 6'1" CrossFitters out there.
Yeah, I know.
Keep going.
Anyways, my opinion on this is, make sure your overhead squat is dialed in. You have that range of motion, great. And then you try to push the burpee pace because it does seem right at face value, it's more reps. Oh, I should slow down. I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't find that to be the case at all. I found that I actually felt a lot better in this version than the other because, again, that psychological factor of your heart rate being up really high wants to put the brakes on your workout, and it won't happen in this one if you can tell yourself just to stay moving.
So I think this one is probably, at least for the Masters age group, is going to have a variation of what that means for what you just said more as you go across the age groups and things like that. So, I mean, going back to the first workout, it's going to be about knowing yourself and understanding, okay, to some point, what Sherb is saying is you want this to be the, shoot for the 3-minute Fran so that it hurts afterward a lot more rather than getting, to the 6s and you can't do it anymore because you've spent too much time doing this. So you got to figure out what that means in terms of time frame. And I think that's going to be a big range in time. I think you're talking about the, 2-minute, high 2 minutes, 3 minutes, for the 35s, that's going to be mid 2s or something like that.
Yeah, I think mid 2s is
right.
And
then, as you get a little bit older, that's going to be a little bit longer, but it's, it means something a little bit different. So you're going to have to figure that out with the understanding that you've got to push it.
It's 27 squats and it's 27 box jumps.
Yep,
and
exactly.
No offense, not that scary. And if I don't think it's scary, that might be saying something. So again, to qualify why we are saying this, we looked at it, we said, man, I don't know, 165, 30-inch box, how much of that metabolic demand is going to be there? So when Sherb got back to his barbell on the round of 9 and got back to his barbell on the round of 6, he was conservative. He wanted to make sure that he was going to be able to pick it up, get him done, and get back to the box. He got done and had that feeling that everyone has at the end of workouts like that, like, damn it, I probably should have picked up that barbell a little bit faster on both rounds, especially the round of 6. Because when you walked over and I said something to you about, like, I'm just going to be checking your depth, you were like, yeah, man, you want to, hang out? Like, you seemed
grilled cheese,
Yeah, exactly. You seemed very comfortable.
Yeah, I agree.
Too comfortable.
I think I was too comfortable, and I joked with you. I was wearing my Versalifts, and they had slid to the toe of my shoe. So I had one heel that was elevated like an ollie shoe, and the other one was like an inverse ollie shoe. So I was getting some wonky overhead squats in the middle set, which made sense why you came over. But then, like I said, you come over and I could answer you with a very complete sentence, which isn't a good indication in the middle of a workout. So
right.
I really do think that you're gonna feel bad when you're doing it, like bad, but it's not going to get worse. And that's what I was trying to tell Lizzie as I was coaching her through the last round. I'm like, you think that you're going to need to take an extra second? Don't. Just pick the bar up. It's not going to get any worse. And then when you get to the burpee box jump over, yes, it's a taller box for the females versus the males, but keep pushing because it doesn't get any worse. Like, you hold that like 70, 80% terrible burn, but you're not at that, oh my goodness, I'm doing bike sprint feel over and over again. Just keep moving, keep moving. And I do think, and when she got done, she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm glad you said that to me because otherwise I would have had to pop straight up, walk into the box style of burpee box jump over instead of just kind of pushing back and forth through it.
So for the best of the best, this is Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
Going for it, getting after it.
Let's go to the CrossFit Games. I mean, come on. Do you want to have that feeling of shit, I should have, knocked 10 seconds off and I would have gone, or
especially
whatever.
If you get done and it didn't feel like you went there.
Yeah.
That hurts a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want to end that way. That's not how you want to end your weekend.
All right, quick recap. We are suggesting athletes get number 4 and number 1 done today, number 2 done tomorrow, number 3 done Saturday, number 5 done Sunday. If you are a teen phenom and you want to tackle event 3 tomorrow in hopes of a redo that potentially goes with your front squat redo on Saturday, by all means get after it. Just remember that is 600 double unders that come before you jumping on that 30-inch box.
True.
Just, something to mention. And last but not least, a quick shout out to our show sponsors. You can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on your first jug of proper recovery. PureSpectrumCBD.com, use the code word Misfit to save on any and all orders. SharpenTheAxeCo.com. Use the code word Keala, Keala, to donate 10% of your order to the Keala Foundation and save 10%. And if you want to try our programming, MisfitAthletics.com or the SugarWOD Marketplace, 2-week free trial. Good luck this weekend. Keep your eyes on @MisfitAthletics on Instagram for more content, and we'll see you next time.